Nick Bosa. Where are you with Nick Bosa? John Lynch is saying, hey, man, if you're in that camp that says that Nick Bosa is not having a good year, you're not watching the tape. And I understand what he's saying because Nick Bosa is causing a lot of penalties to opposing offensive linemen. They're holding him. He's. Let's just say this, Coach. He's a more of a force than 2 sacks would tell you he is. But is Nick Bosa having a great year? Is he not having a great year? Are sacks? He had 18 and a half last year. He's not going to get anywhere close to that this year, you would think, unless he really gets it going. What kind of year is Nick Bosa actually having?
I think that he's having a solid year. He really is. Notwithstanding, I feel like because what he's running in a new system with Coach Wilks, he's asked to be the anchor in a lot of those sets. He's asked to be almost the defense is Christian McCaffrey, if you will, where he draws the most attention in a lot of the past sets. And I feel as though that Coach Wilks is looking at what was the strength or the weaknesses of our defensive line. And he did what I would have done. There's no sense in lining up 4-man when you only believe that out of your 4-man, maybe 2 of them can win consistently, right? And on top of it is that even in your pass rush on defense, you still have to operate with the run in mind, with being able to sustain rush lanes and to be able to understand that the quickest way across the line of scrimmage is in a straight path running the ball. So Nick Bosa is also one of the reasons why he's seemingly not putting out the gaudy stats is because he is doing a great job in creating the pressure for other people to get assists and get hockey assists, if you will, or hockey sack assists, if you will, even if that's a term. That would help him. So I think that he's having a very solid year. It hasn't been perfect. He has seen some matchups that he didn't like. He struggled against the Bengals in pass protection. I mean, in pass rushing, he struggled against Cleveland. DeJuan Jones enveloped him. There was nothing that he could do about that. And also Cincinnati's tackle, Brown, it was.
Zeus, yeah.
Yeah. He had a very good day against Nick. And one of the things that I think we're seeing is that there's a difference between his production and what we expect from him. And then also understanding that maybe we're starting to see what Nick Bosa has trouble with. It seems as though that he has trouble with bigger men, just larger men who can take on what is one of the tenets of his pass rushing ability, which is his bull rush. He has a phenomenal bull rush. But if you've shown that you're able to sustain that, Nick Bosa has to be able to get in his bag a little bit more, be a little bit more artful. And what does that do? That takes time, right? And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing millisecond missed sacks. We're seeing times where Nick is just there with an outreached arm, but the ball is getting out, or a quarterback is evading, or he's leaking out. So I feel as though that as far as a pass rush is concerned, you kind of have to take it in the ilk of like a shooter in basketball. The only way you get out of a slump is you keep shooting. There's no way you're going to get out of a slump is if you stop. So I would love to keep seeing a higher tick of Nick being pushed with his ears pinned back. And I believe that it's just only a matter of time because he's due. He's due.
I think Wilks is letting him down, to be honest. And I don't want to blame it all on Wilks because I like Wilks and I think Wilks is competent, but I just don't know that the Niners back end coach is tied to their front end. So like you're totally right. The line that made me think of this is when you said he's almost getting it done. He's almost getting home, right? You're right. He's getting pressure, but he's not quite getting home.
He's not finishing.
And I blame the non-complimentary coverage. It seems like there's times where they're getting it dialed up front, but the coverage is relatively soft. And like when I was watching on the binoculars the last 2 weeks, I mean, I didn't see the binoculars for Cousins, but last week against Burrow, every time they were right about to get to Burrow, he had somebody who was just right there available that he could dump it off to underneath. And it's like, be more aggressive underneath. Hug up on these guys and dare them. If you're going to have a pass rush that's going to put heat on the quarterback, then the ball's going to come out quicker. And Burrow was getting it out in 2.4 seconds. It was like fourth best in the league. So you knew that was going to be his game plan. So you got to hug up on those receivers and dare them to throw it over the top of your head. Instead, the Niners made it real easy for Burrow to evade the rush by just dumping it off underneath. And sometimes it was to the back, but a lot of times it wasn't even on screen passes. It was just he was finding his receivers within 10, 12 yards of the line of scrimmage and just playing pitch and catch. They have to get more competitive in their coverage and, tighter coverage and have their back end coordinated with their front end. Otherwise, you could have Fred Dean on one side. You could have, Bruce Smith on another side. And it
won't matter.
It won't matter. It won't matter.
Yeah, well,
Young now. I mean, you're right there in Chase Young land. That's going to help them quite a bit, but not if they
only but so much. Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Larry. One aspect of this that I am starting to see is that it's not necessarily the soft coverage, but it seems as though that when they do go man coverage, it's not if, but when we're going to get a pass interference call. I mean, even when we started going man in Cincinnati, Tony Romo was bringing it up. There were plays before Travarius Ward started getting holding calls where he was handsy, he was grabby, he clearly was not comfortable in the position that he was playing press man. So my question is what is happening during practice where these guys seem as though that they're like a fish out of water when they play man? That's the real issue, right? Isaiah Oliver is getting beat in man, right? When those slot fades are coming or where he's getting beat with those deep overs, that's man. That ain't zone, right? That he's playing. So my biggest question would be, what is the technique that we're evangelizing throughout the DBs on where our keys are with man? Because you do have to ask the question, do we got the dogs for it? Right? Do we got the dogs to really run man, to run it? Right? Because if we don't, then we have to go back to our traditional front and what we used to run up front, because these boys can't be sticky on the back end.
Well, what impact do you think Chase Young's going to have? I mean, what are you expecting to see as far as snap count and usage and impact against Jacksonville for Chase Young?
All right, well, snap count, I would love to see him average about 20 to 25 snaps a game. That's about a little under a half of football, right? 60 snaps in a football game. If I saw him coming in just under 50%, around like 40%, just coming in, that to me says that he's showing production and he's actually getting on the field on third down, right? So I would love to see him get around 20 to 25 snaps a game. As far as impact, I don't know what we're going to see out of Chase necessarily in the run game. He's a shooter. As far as like shooting gaps, he's a bit selfish. As far as team football is concerned, when you're running the ball, and I mean, when you're defending the run, and really, that's really no excuse for where he comes from. I mean, if anything works with the Washington Commanders, it's that front. It's their defense, right? That front is the only thing that's can be like evangelized throughout the league and people can give it like actual respect. He's not playing. That's one of the reasons why I am looking at him as being not necessarily a starter, but more of a additional piece, more of a package guy for us. I don't see him necessarily coming in, asserting himself and being a big role guy. And if he is, that's going to be to my surprise. But one of the reasons why I feel that way is because he played with a good D-line. He played with a D-line full of first rounders who all have their own cachet, and he chose to play selfishly in the run game. So you can't do that on defense, period, but you certainly can't do that here with the way we swarm. Now, as far as pass rushing is concerned, he's talented. Okay. There's a lot there. He's long. He has a good first step. At first, when he first came into the league, he was a little bit basic, didn't have many moves. Okay. And he really just wasted a lot of movement, relied on his athleticism, kind of comes up to an offensive lineman or a defend or a blocker, and he used to, throw feints, fake steps where it's kind of like, dude, if you would just use your God-given ability, split his crotch and rip through him, or side scissors, you'd be much better. It's almost as where you can see that him and Nick Bosa, that is, they both come from the same ilk of their defensive line philosophy out of Ohio State. But Nick is almost a teach tape in that regard, where Chase, he's got a ways to go. Right now, he is strong. All right. However, we don't know. When I watched him on film, I did question how much he wanted to be physical. Right. There's a difference between being strong when you want to and being physical when you have to or when you need to be. Right. And that could be gleamed upon his injury, right? He's coming off a catastrophic knee injury where he's over a year off the injury and he seems to be just getting his strides. But in some of the film that you see him, that you watch, you can see that he is favoring the knee with technique. He takes false steps at times. So only reason why I'm going back and forth and kind of giving you a yin and yang, Larry, because I love the pick for the value, full stop. For the value,
the value is incredible.
Amazing, right? However, I do want to come in balanced because there's a reason why the number 2 overall pick got traded for the value that we got him for, right? So I believe that he's going to be an asset to us because he's coming in to be an addition to what we already have. And we already have a very strong culture. We're getting a guy with the right narrative. We've already seen this in Cleveland Farrell, Arden Key, where guys come in where they were highly touted and they understand that if you can't make it here, not only is that hurt your career, but that puts the word on you as far as, well, everybody makes it in San Francisco. So I do think that his production is going to be risen by the tide, and we're going to see the best out of what he can give us. But I did see effort issues, right? I did see him not playing as hard as that he could have, going through the motions, kind of doing his own thing and freelancing at times. So at times where you see him play, you did question his work ethic.